Hi, welcome to my first video on my modeling channel. Today I would like to build this 1/72 scale A9 British cruiser tank Mk1 with two-pounder gun. This model has been recently released and is one of the newest models from IPG Models, so let's take a closer look at the sprues. In the box we get 5 sprues with many wonderful parts. In this case we can see the upper hull with fantastic bolt details. Details on tracks and the turrets are also very nice, but due to simplified molding process, they doesn't look as good as the rest of the model. Although tracks are simplified, there are other wonderful details, like this hollow end of the exhaust pipe, interior of commander's hatch, and end of the gun barrel. Along with this model kit, we get this small booklet, which includes information about development of the vehicle, painting scheme, some technical informations about paintings and markings of the vehicle in British service, and instruction of assembling the model on the last page. I begin the assembly by cutting out all the pieces of the lower hull from their sprues. It's not a hard task because the sprue joints are thin and doesn't interfere with details. For cleaning up the parts, I usually use metal file. I just need to be careful not to damage the detail on the parts. For gluing together plastic parts, I use Mr. Cement S, which is an extra thin glue, which evaporates on air very quickly, so it doesn't damage the parts, but it creates a very strong bond. While using this glue, you don't need to worry about covering too big area of it, because once it evaporates, there will be no sign of it. At this stage, the instructions tell us to attach the tracks and wheels to the lower hull, but I decided to leave them separate to make painting and weathering easier later. All we have to do with this part is to attach the brake drums to the sprocket wheel, and we need to make sure that all the wheels are perfectly aligned with the bogies attached to the hull. Now we can add the upper hull and fenders on both sides. Everything just clicks into its place and the fit is perfect. Now we should also attach the exhaust pipe to the hull, but I decided to leave it separate for now to add some modifications to it. I also forgot to add those return roller arms earlier, so I'm adding them now. Next, I attach side walls of the driver compartment. And then I add also his front hatch. While gluing the smaller turrets, you should leave a small gap between the roof and the sides, because it was present on the real vehicles. I've decided to glue machine guns in different positions to make the model look more interesting and authentic. Then I could start working on the main turret. I began by fitting together lower and upper part of it. After that, I've placed the gun mountlet on the front plate of the turret. Unfortunately, this piece doesn't fit very well, so you need to hold it until the glue cures to make sure it's placed correctly. When all the main components of the turret were glued together, I just added the gun barrel. I've also decided to glue the commander's hatch in an open position. I don't have a figure to place here yet, but maybe I'll have one in the future. It's also a great way to make your model look more interesting by exposing the greatly molded detail on the inside of this hatch. Here you can see the details I've added to the exhaust pipe. It was missing this mesh guard, so I've scratch built it from some old PE parts and mesh I found in my workshop. I've also decided to remove this awfully thick antenna because I'll make it from copper wire after the painting is done. At this point, there are only some small details left to be added to the model, like those headlamps or some other smaller details on the turret. The last detail I've added was this British helmet hanging on the side of the turret. It was inspired by the A9 cruiser tank, which can be seen in Bovington. So here's how the completed model looks. It's almost ready for painting. We just need to gently wash it in a soapy water so we can prepare the surface for primer. The primer I've decided to use on this model is one-shot primer from MIG. I like using grey primers on my models because I think the grey is the most neutral color for the later paint layers. I used to use black primers before, but I didn't like the results. I prefer painting to be much lighter because it will be toned down during the weathering. One-shot primer is also very easy to use. You don't need to mix it with any thinners, you just need to shake it and pour it straight into your airbrush. Primer is not only used for unifying the surface and making a good foundation for the paint, but it can also help you spotting some imperfections on your model, like in this example, a seam line on the helmet. I quickly solved this problem by scraping off the mold line using a hobby blade. The first paint color which I'm going to lay is going to be khaki number 3 from AK Interactive Real Color series. I thinned it in a 50:50 ratio using AK Interactive dedicated thinner. Then I've sprayed a one thin layer over the whole vehicle. I've decided to paint this model with a modulation technique, which means that I'll be using lighter shades of each color on the edges of the panels and details to make the painting more interesting and to highlight all the details. For the lighter shade, I decided to mix the previously used color in a 50:50 ratio with a cream white. I like adding pieces of masking tape on edges of each panel to avoid overspraying. Here's how the model looks after modulation. It looks very unrealistic and cartoonish, but all the lighter shades will get toned down during the weathering. This vehicle is going to be painted in the British Expeditionary Force Camouflage, which consisted of two colors, khaki and green. For the green I've decided to use RC047 olive drab from RC Colors. For reference how to mask the vehicle, I've printed out a 1:72 scale copy of a page from Bromco instructions, which include the painting scheme which I'm going to replicate. So here's how the model looks like after applying the masking tape. Now we can spray it with the second camouflage color. As you can see, the second color is very dark, so I'm going to use the modulation technique once again, and this time I'm going to mix 3 paints. I'm going to use 50% of the olive drab, 30% of Decals and 20% of cream white. I sprayed the lighter shade in the same manner as with the previous camouflage color, and after that I've decided to take off the masking tape. So here's how this model looks like without any masking tape. As you can see, the contrast between camouflage colors is high in some places and very low in others, and this will allow us to bring more life to this model during the weathering. After taking a closer look at the painted model, I decided that the lighter shade on the brown color is too light, and I've decided to tone it down a little bit using the base color. For this purpose I've mixed a very diluted mix of paint, which consisted of 3 parts of paint and 7 parts of thinner. Then I sprayed a very thin layer of paint over all the brown highlights. Now the model looks much better in my opinion, and we can secure the paint with clear varnish. I like to use the semi-gloss one from Tamiya, and I dual it with Mr. Color leveling thinner. Model has been coated with 2 thin layers of the semi-gloss varnish, and now we can apply the markings. Before placing decals in the water, I like to cut the bigger sheet into smaller sections for easier working. Then I throw the decals into the water for a few minutes. After 5 minutes the decals became movable on the paper, so I took them out of the water and decided to place them on the vehicle. To help the decals better stick to the surface, I've used Mark Fit Strong from Tamiya. I've applied the product in 2 layers, one underneath and one over the decal. And then, after positioning the decals, I've wiped the excess with a piece of toilet paper. So as you can see, after placing, the decals are still more shiny than the paint underneath. So to fix that, I just cover them with a thin layer of semi-gloss varnish. Here's how this model looks at this stage. I've decided to stop here and film the weathering in the next video. I have also prepared a small base for this vehicle, painting of which I will show also in the next video. If you like this video and you would like to know more about British cruiser tanks in 1/72 scale from IBG, then I highly recommend checking channel of my friend Joachim from JORAMA MODELLBAU, where he just now uploaded a video with results of his work on Crusader MK.III and the aircraft tank. Link for his channel will be in the description. And for the end, I wish you a nice day, thank you for watching this video and I hope I see you in the next one. Goodbye.